Bismillah. Recently, I had done assignment of Islamic Development Bank regarding its investments in Islamic banks all over the world. Uh, one of what I did was the camel analysis of all the banks for the 10 years. I sorted the balance sheets of every bank for the 10 years and extracted the relevant data for the camel analysis. Camel analysis is it stands for the capital adequacy. C for capital adequacy, A for asset performance, M for management capability, E for earning performance, and L for liquidity. In every of these five areas, different ratios are checked, and those ratios are compared with the average ratios of all the banks or the standards ratios, and then uh, there and then it is determined whether it's a good, bad, or excellent, or too much underperformed. So in that way, I gave the score to every bank. I compared their ratios with the uh, centralized data of their central banks. If they have been uh, assembling data of the Islamic banks, particularly, then I compared the Islamic banks with the Islamic banks because in the investment and finance, it is said that apples should be compared with the apples. Apples should not be compared with the oranges. But in case there is a situation that force majeure like situation that you don't have available the particular data, then I compared with the all conventional banks and then uh, gave them my opinion on the strength of the scores. I made a balanced scorecard of it. Were the investment. It was investment in 15 banks all over the world, including in Pakistan, in Turkey, in Eastern Europe, and in the Africa, Middle East, and Gulf. And these were 15 banks. I'm going to show you one of the bank. Here is the first screen in which I'm showing the ratios, key ratios. First of all, it's a group of four ratios in which return on equity is broken down into three factors, namely the return on assets and asset turnover ratio and uh, net profit margin. This is called DuPont analysis. And then there is return on assets, and there is spread. Spread is the margin of the bank on the interest rate which it gives to the depositors and which it takes from the lenders, sorry, borrowers. So that difference, which is the earning of the bank, it's like a gross profit of the bank industry. It is called spread. Then it is non-performing loans, which is like bad debts, uh, the loans which are not recovered. Uh, this is the uh, non-performing loan ratio. This gives the asset performance that how good are its receivables. If they have lesser is better and higher is worse. If the not a non-performing loan ratio is higher, then it is worse. But if it is lower, then it's good. And if the spread is higher, then it's good. And if it's lower, then it's bad. And like is like ROA, return on asset, higher is the better. And there are other values like deposit strength. These have been abbreviated in the local currency and in the millions. Is here Turkish. It's probably Turkish lira in billions. So deposits, it gives you the trend of deposits. Here is the CAGR, which is trend. compounded annualized growth rate. And then the loans, it's over the period of 10 years, its deposits have increased by 23% annually, and investments have increased 18% annually. Total asset increased 23%. Equity has increased by 18% annually. And this is the rating uh, given by the rating agency, banking rating agencies, which is double B, double B minus, and likewise. And these are some permanent information, like its country is Turkey and it is listed. So if the company is listed or bank is listed in the stock exchange, then it's better because it's more subject to stringent audits and checks. And when was the first investment made by the Islamic Development Bank? And uh, it is the IRR in the local currency, internal rate of return IRR. What is the IRR of the investment of Islamic Development Bank? It is calculated from the cash flows, which is, and this is, here is the IRR. These are the investments. Then these are the returns, dividends, and then another purchase was made, and this is the final wealth value. So that's how its IRR was determined in its local currency and in the Islamic dinar, which is the currency of Islamic Development Bank. And along with it, the conversion rate is also given, and dates are also. This is the date-wise table of conversion rates. Uh, now, if we click on this tab, we come to the worksheet of the ratios by Camel analysis. C for capital adequacy. Capital adequacy means that its capital is sufficient to cover the depositors' risk. Uh, its ratio to the loans it has given. So greater is the better. It indicates uh, as, risk coverage of the depositors. But if it is too much high, then it means that the bank is a bit lethargic. It is not doing its banking business efficiently and not lending to the businesses. And this is the ratio of the central bank, all the banks' average ratios, and we compare it with it. And this is capital to risk weighted assets and capital to total assets. Risk weighted assets are the assets which are adjusted to the non performing loans. Uh, how much their uh, collective collectibleness. For example, if there is 100,000 loan and there is a 10% risk of its going insolvent, then we will take 90,000 as a risk-weighted asset. So these are called the risk-weighted assets, and their ratio to capital to risk-weighted asset, and non-performing loans ratio, and CASA. CASA is current account to saving accounts. Uh, the higher the CASA, the better it is, because that means that the bank is depending on more on the uh, interest-free deposits and then earning by lending. But there is also restriction on interest-free deposits there, which cannot be lent for the long term. Then there is return on assets and return on equity. Here it indicates the management efficiency. This indicates the earning capacity and efficiency of the business or the bank. And spread means, I have already told you in the previous section. Cost to income ratio, operating expenses are how much of the spread. and operating expenses plus non-performing loan ratio to the income, and HR expenses to the operating expenses, liquid assets to the total assets. Liquid assets are the marketable securities and cash in bank, with cash in bank held by this bank. And total assets are the marketable securities, cash, plus the loans given to the borrowers. And likewise, there are other ratios. The next is are the raw values from which these ratios were calculated. These values were extracted from the 10 years balance sheet. You can see from 2011 to 2020. And there is another form of table which was specially designed for this bank on the client's instruction. Then there is some definition of the rating banking rating scales, like what the AAA, uh, A, small a, and AAA means prime, high grade, upper medium grade, lower grade, and so. Well, in this is assignment with the Islamic Development Bank. I had also explained the write up of the methodology of evaluation of the investee banks, which includes that which aspects I looked into these banks, and which ratios were associated with each aspect, and how these ratios were determined on the ordinal balancing scorecard uh, over the four levels of scores of inferior, good, better, best, and numbers were associated to these levels, and hence overall number was done. So that is how I explained in this document with the flow charting, with the tables. I just show you. Let's see. You see, I'm explaining the four major areas and factors below each major area, and then how the different levels were associated with the scores. And this is how I have explained with the graphically, as they say that a picture is better than thousand words. So I have explained it by the flowchart as well. And these I have also explained the sources of each attribution, how I took the values from their published balance sheets, and I sent them the questionnaires uh, to give some more information. I searched the profiles of the bankers and the management to determine the management capability and potential. And then the score levels were determined for best, better, good, and worst. And then overall scores were given to each bank and they were compared among themselves. So that is how I determined the performance evaluation of each investment of Islamic Development Bank. Now, this is the worksheet for comparing all the banks together, and then determining which bank is better, which is uh, good, and which is underperforming. There are four levels of scores. Let me explain here. So these are this is the mark allocation guide. There are four levels of scores: 3, 2, 1, 0 for highly relevant, relevant, partly relevant, and irrelevant. Or it can also be termed as the best, better, good, and substandard or inferior or not good. So these four levels have been associated with the scores, and that score is taken from the according to the values in this input sheet of each bank. Mm, It depends on these values and these ranges of the relevant ratios. Like this is average return on equity and the percent it has outperformed the industry standard ratio, industry average, and likewise the spread and the percent it has outperformed the industry's overall industry spread. So that is how we determine the scoring of each bank. And here we have the investment policy of Islamic Development Bank, and here we have explained the each aspect. We have looked into the evaluation of each bank, like its relevance of the investment, how relevant was the investment, how efficient was the investee bank, how effective was the investee bank, and is the investee bank sustainable in future. So all these aspects were looked for evaluating, and within these aspects, there are sub aspects and ratios. So, as I've shown you, here are the some working the ratios and industry averages, and from the these uh, values were calculated, and outperformance from the industry benchmark was determined, and then the scores were given. And below this table, we can see the total score. Here is the total score of each area, and the total, like in this, each area has been given 25 equal weightage, 25% each. And from the 25, this is the score of each bank from within the 25. And if we take it as 100, then from the 100, each bank has scored this much score in each area. And then these scores, according to this range of values, uh, these scores were given the grades of A, B, C, D, and then the overall grade was determined for each bank. So that is how I made the detailed analysis of Islamic Development Bank investments. So it was a very important and significant assignment which I recently conducted. So I hope you will appreciate it. And if you have time, I will also show you some more working that match. So thank you for now.